It's just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Aries Manos. He's the founder and CEO of K2 Dental Arts, a digital dental laboratory that went from 0 to 6 million in revenue in 6 years and ranks consistently on the Inc. 500 5000 list. It now operates under Paramount Dental Studio, a larger lab in California. Part of K2's success stemmed from its expert understanding of how to implement intraoral scanners in dental practices. In February, before his first child was born, he had to attend his second Wim Hof Seminar, taking daily ice baths in a Polish river. Shout out to Marcin Dulecki, who had me come down there and lecture, I think, every 5 years since the Berlin Wall fell. K2 Dental Arts was founded at the University of Virginia Darden School of Business by 3 MBA students in 2014. Based in Charlottesville, Virginia, they are pleased to serve practices throughout North America, Canada, and Puerto Rico. They are comprised of highly motivated individuals who are passionate about the evolving field of digital dentistry and dental innovation. Our founders include 2 former military veterans, and thus they are proud supporters of wounded warriors. K2 Dental Arts is a rapidly growing startup dental laboratory. My gosh, it's amazing what you've done, and what's even more amazing is on Dental Town, so many people will show their case, and they're sending it to the lab, and it's like a quadrant impression, and they still got the cotton roll in it and blood in it, and I'm like, okay, I bet the pandemic push towards digital scanning. I mean, are there labs saying, we don't want your quadrant impression with blood and gauze all over? We'd rather have a corona-free scan.
No, I don't know if that's actually changed. That since Corona, the biggest trends that we've seen, and thanks for having me on, the biggest trends that we've seen right now is just everybody's going absolutely crazy. We've been slammed. We partner labs of ours that we know, smaller labs, are either you're completely slammed as a laboratory and you have more cases than you ever had at one point in time, just all these pent up COVID orders, and you're behind on turnaround times. Glidewell's super behind, and they're like in the lab world, they might not be the absolute standard of the best quality, but they are the most efficient, and everybody looks up to them when they're behind, and we're behind. There's tons of, basically everybody's getting cases back in. What we're seeing is that maybe dentists are stressed out too. A lot of people, there's mistakes happening on the lab side, mistakes happening on the clinical side. And so it's a big mess coming back from COVID, at least. And now it's starting to seem like it's slowing down a little bit.
Well, I just want to say for the record, being a dentist for 32 years, that a dentist has never made a mistake ever. It's always the lab man. And you should know that by now.
Well, sorry.
Did you not get the memo?
No, that's absolutely right. It's in the lab world, I guess laboratories will really walk on eggshells try to phrase it in the nicest way.
So dentists, listen to what he just said. He just said laboratories really work on eggshells. And I see it in dental offices where you have an office meeting and the dentist does all the talking and the staff doesn't chime in. Why? Because they know you're not going to listen. It doesn't matter. You don't care, whatever. And I think if you have an office manager, I don't think the dentist should attend the staff meeting, because they chime up and talk to the office manager. And when I got to when I opened up in '87. I was using a German guy. The greatest lab techs were all from Germany. I mean, they had the doctors, a laboratory, and all that stuff. And his name was Wolfgang. And I need to track him down. I don't know if he's still alive. That was 32 years ago. And I called him up. I said, hey, I went to University of Missouri, Kansas City. Did you like that prep? And there's just this big pause. This German voice said, you need to come down here. And I thought, okay, what do you want me? So I went down there, and he showed me my lab prep. But then what he did is he walked me down, and he showed me every impression in the pan. And he worked with me for a couple hours. And I told him, I said, don't be afraid of me. I want to be a good dentist. So, send it back. Have a relationship.
Yeah, some dentists say that. It's not a lot. It's not near the majority. A lot of people say that. I'd say 15%.
Yeah. So then they'll fly clear to the Spear, Pankey, Ross, Coyce to go learn all this stuff, and the teacher doesn't know him from Adam, and your lab man is afraid to tell you.
Yeah.
And
what's also bad is a lot of times they'll make intraoral scanners, or they'll make some sort of decision that the lab might know about, and they say, hey, I just got this intraoral scanner, can you work with it? Or I'm thinking about getting this intraoral scanner, can you work with it? And labs will always just say yes. I can always accept your cases no matter what. Or if you've already made a decision, they're never going to tell you the decision's bad. They're always just going to be like, yeah, that's great, let's rock and roll. And then you just might get bad cases, or they might be worse, but they'll never tell you it's not so good.
And I call that the Saddam Hussein syndrome, because it was just a horrible communication breakdown where the United States sent an ambassador over to go talk to him about the Kuwait thing, and they sent a woman, and he thought, being an Arab man, that was a kind of a secret handshake, that we don't really care what you do. And then all of his generals wouldn't tell him. He would ask them, he says, well, do you think we can fight off America? And everyone said absolutely. And they didn't last 100 hours, because they knew if they said, oh, yeah, my tank division won't last 100 hours, he'd shoot them.
Yeah.
So don't be Saddam Hussein. I mean, gosh darn, call your lab man and say, my strengths and weaknesses better than anyone. What would you do if you were me? You don't have to go all the way to Quayson, Seattle, when your lab man is begging to tell you something right there. And then if you're really young, the lab man will know some older dentists that won't mind that you go over there. And I was so bad that the lab man would actually drive me over to Roger Briggs' office, other offices, just like, well, you watch this guy, he's like really good and you're not, try to learn something. So you just got to be humble.
Yeah, we would be more than happy to do those kind of things. No one asks, though. It's the funny thing.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's the other thing with Invisalign. It's like, you want to learn how to do Invisalign and you got only one orthodontist in your small town. I would think you would ask him first.
Yeah.
So you flew all the way to LA when you there's another orthodontist in Beeville, Texas, and you didn't go talk to that one.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of dentists are introverts. They're just shy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So one dentist told me that, sometimes it might be like, your preps define you as a dentist. It really is, are you good or not? And so sometimes I feel like we, especially around the prep, that when we talk about walking on eggshells, that it's almost something that they don't want to talk about. And we never really say, hey, can you give me some tips on prep design, or like retraction? Like if it's not good enough, let me know what to do. It's usually just, hey, just make it work. That type of thing.
Well, I think the fastest road to, and by the way, congratulations on your name, Aries, man. It's the Greek god. Mars, the Greek god, what is it? Under the influence of Greek culture, Mars was identified with the Greek god Ares, whose myths are reinterpreted in Roman literature under the name Mars. So was your mom like a big Mars fan?
And my mom just liked the name because Mars, like a celestial body, it seemed nice to her. And it's actually a pretty common name in Greece. My dad thought it was cool because it's like the Greek god of war. He's like, oh, that's badass. Let's name that. So it kind of worked out for both of them. But
you just didn't know that the god of war was going to have to fight a virus. You thought you'd be on a chariot fighting soldiers with swords and shields. Turns out to be a virus.
He actually turns out, when I was reading, I don't know why they named it, because he was actually like even though he's the god of war, he was very like childish and petty. And I'm reading this, and then I was little, I'm like, geez, you got to give your kids something to look up to.
Well, the fastest way to increase your quality, I mean, you're a human. It's all visual. It's 80% visual, 20% sound. And when you add loops, my first loops were 2.5, now they're 3.8. You're a better dentist. Endodontists, they all get a microscope, and my gosh, they're only turning it up to 8x. And most of them it's just a check before they obturate, and boom, I missed a canal, or one of them still filled with sludge. And then intraoral scanners, I'm still sick from the first time I used an intraoral scanner. It was when I bought my CEREC machine, right? And it had a scanner, and I got to see my prep 40 times larger. I thought a monkey did the prep. I'm like, what the hell's that, man? That's you. Yeah. I'm like, that's the most god-awful thing I've ever seen. I mean, it looked really good under my, 2.5, 3.8 loops, but at 40x, if the board would have showed up and said, we need your license, I just would have surrendered it. I mean, the evidence is there. I still think, I mean, I know there's a lot of great things about intraoral scanners, and you're going to talk about, I know there's a lot of great things, but I think the single greatest thing is just simply magnification for the person doing the prep. You get to see your work. I mean, usually they do a prep, then they do it all backwards. Like they'll do the prep, and then they'll leave the room and let the assistant spend 15 minutes packing cord when you could have sat there and packed it with her in 1 minute. And then they'll take an impression and go do a hygiene check because they're going to let the assistant do the temporary. So they think they're doing business delegating. It's all wrong. And those appointments are an hour and a half. But the person that goes in there and numbs, sets a timer for 4 minutes, then preps, and then packs the cord, then makes a temporary. I learned more in my temporary than anything. I learned that I don't have enough reduction. I can't see the margin on the acrylic. So you work out all your problems, your temporary. And then when you're ready to cement temporary, then it's impression or scan. And I mean, it's just amazing. But so what percent of your incoming cases but by the way, by the way, if you get a reduction coping one time in your life, it should never happen again. So why do you get a second reduction coping? A reduction coping only means you're taking the final impression before you've made the temporary. You would have known there was not enough space if you made the temporary first. So a reduction coping, you should just send it doctor backwards. Here's your reduction coping since you took the final impression before you made the temporary. You need to turn those two things around. One dentist told me that one time, and we're done. I mean, nobody should ever get a second reduction coping.
And the tools they have, I think almost every scanner now has an occlusal clearance like tool of some sort. So all you need to do is literally just click, the button, and it'll show you. Or have your assistant click the button, and if it shows up as red, then she needs to red flag you or something like that.
Okay, now before I ask him this question, I want you to put on your bullshit detectors. It's called channel conflict. I mean, you're not gonna if I had an orthodontist on from a city with 10 dentists, and I said, well, who's the best dentist and who's the worst dentist, and it refers to well. He can't say. So it's called channel conflict. So a lot of people don't want to say, because I'm going to ask you, obviously my homies want to know, okay, this is what you do. This is your core expertise. There's a bunch of scanners out there. Which one do you like the most? But when you tell me which one you like the most, I'm sure you're going to hurt the feelings of other people whose scanners you buy and use and have to eat dinner with at Christmas, But anyway, but if you had to only buy one scanner, which one would it be?
We always say this based on one question. It's are you do you want to get into Invisalign right now, or are you doing Invisalign, or do you want to get into Invisalign in the future, Invisalign specifically?
And the answer to that is pretty sad, because if you look at the macroeconomics, there's we're 7.8 billion people. They think will max out we'll never hit 10. It'll be like 9.8. There's 2 million dentists, so there's about a dentist for every 6,000 people. And all the old stuff that GV Black talked about a century ago, cleanings, exams, fillings, I mean, they've been growing at about the rate of the economy. The only two sectors growing at double digits is implants and clear aligners.
Yeah.
So you just, so if someone says they don't want to get into clear aligners, I
agree. And
so you do agree with that?
Yeah, I agree.
So you're going to say iTero because Invisalign, Line Technology, which owns Invisalign, also owns iTero. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we say that, and it's not like it's. I don't know. Again, I'm not a dentist. That doesn't seem like it's wrong if you do or you don't get into clear aligners or Invisalign, but it is growing a lot, and we see a lot of the more successful and the most successful practices that we see that are doing tons of crown and bridge. They're great dentists as well. That they are embracing that, and they're doing Invisalign.
So I just got to weigh in on that. So sorry to keep interrupting you. Feel free to tell me to shut up any minute, but. When I got out of school in '87, the cosmetic dentist, you have all these crooked teeth, and they just file everything down to a rice kernel and then put these teeth on there, and you just think, God dang, you just stuck the tooth in a pencil sharpener. Why didn't you just unravel that with some ortho? Well, if your only tool's a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You're not if you say you're a cosmetic dentist and you can't do clear aligners, you're just not a cosmetic dentist.
Yeah.
And when you're diagnosing and treatment planning, what percent of these anterior cases on pretty women would it help if you unraveled some of those teeth with some clear aligners like Invisalign?
I'm sure it's at 50% or
Yeah.
something like that.
So
Yeah.
so if you're a cosmetic dentist that doesn't do clear aligners, do you know what my part-time job is where I actually make more money than dentistry? I'm a dancer at the Kyle. What's the name of the boy dancing bar? And oh, Kyle, I know you know. Oh, you're afraid that your wife's gonna find out you know the name of that bar. But yeah, I mean, you're not a cosmetic dentist if you can't do mild ortho, and if your best idea is to file, especially the lower incisors, they look like little 4 rice seeds if you prepare them for a crown. I
Yeah.
mean, you're not going to do that. So you're going to say that if you plan on doing clear aligners, then you're going to go with the iTero.
Yeah, no, that's what we say. At this point, so iTero used to not be so good. So when we started in 2014, 3Shape hands down was the best scanner. And still, if you need to go for a number two, you're really not into Invisalign, or you're looking to do clear aligners, just not Invisalign. 3Shape is a great choice.
And
But
which really says something since you're an American in Virginia and no one ever suggests 3Ms.
3M, the
3M
3M
scanner, yeah. True Def.
No, yeah.
And it was all because you needed that powder.
Yeah, you need well,
And
it's not just the powder. So it's also their technology. So their technology is video based. The Medit is also video based. So when you're talking about
which
videos,
ones are video based?
Medit, 3M, and then I was at Chicago Midwinter. They have some other ones coming out, but a lot of the better priced ones coming out are video based. Video is not as good as confocal imaging, which is what 3Shape and iTero use.
Confocal imaging?
I believe that's correct. Yeah, confocal imaging.
Huh.
That's basically taking pictures and stitching pictures together rather than taking a one stream video. And so it does have to do with powder. It has also to do just as much with the actual technology itself. And when you combine those two, now you have difficulty. And so what ends up happening with 3M doctors or with powder doctor is that the doctor has to do it themselves. That you can't just delegate it easily to an assistant. And so you end up doing the whole procedure yourself to make sure it goes right. And even in a lot of cases, especially your larger cases, that it's not possible because if you rescan a certain area twice with video scanning, it can really throw things off. It can overlay.
Here's what I love about Dental Town. I never have heard of this confocal imaging. So I just go to Dental Town, I search confocal, and there's 23 threads talking about confocal imaging. God,
Yeah.
dentists are smart. I just love dentists. They're just smart people. But so the confocal imaging is done by 3Shape and iTero, and Medit and 3M TrueDef are video-based scanners.
Yeah, and then I don't know what CEREC is, and I think and then the Henry Schein one, the Plan Mecca or the Emerald, I'm not sure what that is either.
And I think the do you think the do you think Chairside milling got a boost from the pandemic because they want to do it all in one appointment, they don't want to come back? Do you think Chairside milling's going to come back? Because let's be frank, Röntgen developed the X-ray in like 1850, and then Thomas Edison, the smartest American we ever had, he started to develop X-rays. He started taking it to the next level, but his guy got cancer and died, and it was just traumatizing. He first had to cut off his hands, and he had to cut off his arms, and he ended up dying. So Edison gave it up, and then it's no one used X-rays. Then at the end of World War II, the Longshoremen's Club started a dental insurance because the President of the United States said we're going to price fix. You can't give anybody a fee raise. So the unions came back and said, okay, we're making $10 an hour. We can't ask for any more money, so we want something free. And they just asked for dental. And the dental, and it was all on the shipping yards, but it started in Washington, Oregon, California. and they covered X-rays at 100%, and like a domino effect, every dentist bought an X-ray machine. So when you say incentives matter in economics, and you're a dentist, I mean, it totally determined the X-ray machine. But we take chairside milling. I don't think Serac got 15% market share.
No, not even Serac in general. Henry Schein's got a mill too. I think their market share is still around 5, maybe to 8% tops, and it's not growing. Whereas intraoral scanners are going on this, hockey stick type curve, and they're starting to go inverted at this point. I don't know what COVID's done to that, but right before COVID,
well, a hockey stick curve would be bad because hockey knocks your teeth out. So does that
well,
mean
maybe
the hockey stick's going down?
Isn't that good for dentistry?
So what percent would you say are using intraoral scanners?
I think it's so the nationwide stats, I'm not sure. I think maybe it's around 40% now. I think the big DSOs all got, I believe it was iTeros, like one iTero per office, all the major DSOs. And so when they did that, that was a huge, like 1 year boost to the numbers. But at this point, everybody's either looks like going to get, or it's going to go past the 50% mark. The number of cases that we get, digital cases, is probably around 65%.
65%. Wow.
Yeah, maybe
wow.
65%, definitely. And so it's increasing every year. And yeah, we would say if they're going to, based on Invisalign, to go with iTero at this point, what the scanner industry is going towards, they're starting to fragment. So originally, like I said, iTero wasn't really good. They had but then they came out with the Element, and they've started to really put huge amounts of R&D into it. And they've been catching 3Shape on all of the things and all the features that 3Shape didn't have. And they've been adding new ones that are just as good, and one that's actually better, and being able to do Invisalign. And so where the scanner industry is going right now is that they've maxed out their potential for accuracy. They can't get any more accurate regarding their technology. It's not like if I put more brain power, manpower into it, that we can get a better scan. You can lower your remakes even more with the latest update or the new scanner. It's not out there anymore. Like, it is where it is. And so what they're moving towards is patient engagement, and starting to get all of these extra additional apps where you can start to essentially, case acceptance in some way, whether it's cosmetic cases, and you're overlaying a face photo on top of the scan, and now you can take the patient's facial features into consideration. Or if you've got this automatic alignment tool where they've got crowding in their teeth, and you hit the button, and it makes their teeth all, perfect and harmonious. And they're like, wow, let's go forward with this Invisalign treatment. Let's go forward with the clear aligner treatment. And so they're all patient monitoring, where you can see a patient's development over time. You can see the wearing as every time they come in. Hygiene, the idea is for hygiene to actually scan every single patient, so you can see wear over time. And now you can have a conversation like, oh, looks like we've got wear in the posterior. Let's look at it right here. Let's think about a night guard. And now they can actually see it. And when they can see it, now they're more likely to accept the case. And so that's where 3Shape's going. That's where iTero is going. On the flip side, you've got a bunch of scanners that are saying, I'm not going that direction. All you really want a scanner for is just to scan. You don't want all these extras. You're never going to end up using them. And so I'm going to lower the price, focus on lowering the price, and just getting you your core scanning, what you need. And so that's where the two markets are going. The higher priced patient engagement, lower priced, just your basic scanning.
And I was wrong when I said 3M True Definition Scanner, because it's no longer 3M. It was acquired by Midmark.
Oh, that's right. Yep, there you
go. So that's use that. So my homie's listening right now. They're the lucky ones are commuting into work, and the poor bastards are on the treadmill for an hour. So he's sitting there thinking, during a pandemic, cash is king, right? And we have a lot of uncertainty. We have a lot of entropy. Warren Buffett hadn't bought in any stocks the year before. The stocks were over on the Buffett index, where the stocks within a country should obviously be worth less than the total GDP. and he likes them around, about 2/3 value stocks, and the stock market is worth about 125% of the GDP, and the GDP is contracting, and a lot of uncertainty. If he doesn't have a scanner right now, should he wait till after the pandemic, or do you think that this is a pandemic instrument?
You mean like just as a like a investment of some sort, just from a pure.
Yeah. I mean, you say 2/3 of your business is already coming in with scanners, but if cash is king right now, could I get my return on investment back from a scanner during a pandemic?
Companies are hurting too. And so from what I've seen, when I'm talking to everybody, like they're really hurting too for sales, and so they've got the craziest deals going on right now, like deferred payments and all that type of stuff. I always think that they should do it. And again, we have zero ties to any scanning company. We don't get paid by anybody. It's simply lab work. That's all we do is lab work. We just know scanners very well because that was sort of our edge. But I always said to buy it now. A lot of people are like, well, let me just wait to the update. Let me just wait to the new one or the new one. And you can always go by that logic, and that you'll just be stuck. As far as it's really about the return on investment for your money. So if there's other things going on, sure, you save your money. But I think a scanner really is a huge return on investment, just because you're lowering your remakes. And right now, it just seems like patients are going crazy. The offices are packed. Keeping your patients and keeping your patient base and keeping them happy is the most important thing. So if you can reduce your turnaround time, you can get them crowns faster. You can reduce that one remake so they come in a little, they don't have to come in again. You look a little bit better. I think that's more from a top line revenue. That's more important than you're looking for to save costs right now. I think keeping your income stream is way more important than saving on some costs at the moment. And I'm not 100% sure that it's going to continue to be a recession.
So there's so many technologies coming, and when I think of anything digital in dentistry or anything in computer, I think of AI. And I've read press where you were doing stuff with Ophir Tans, who was on the show number 1270. And is AI? You did a deal with Pearl, and it made the press, and that's when I saw that, I called you up and said, will you come on the show? It came out and said, Pearl's scan clarity score reduces time and money spent on poor quality scans during dental restoration process. That came out. Did that turn out to be, that was about 8 months ago. Is that still a pilot program, or did that turn out to be good, or are you glad you did that? Or
so we're using it. So our relationship to Pearl is that we're the R&D laboratory for Pearl. So we're not like in their offices every day. We're not like, we're sort of like a partner of theirs. And we're a partner of theirs on one of their 3 products, which is the margin marking technology. Their other product is more like on the dentist side, where they have a second opinion software where it looks at an X-ray and then it can, give you a second opinion, basically, whether that patient needs a crown. And it can just say, yes or no, or put it into buckets. But either way, so on the margin marking side, what the technology can do is basically give you a really good idea about you can mark how many buckets you want as a laboratory, basically good, medium, bad type of margin. It looks at the scan and it automatically detects the margin. So if it's a clear margin, then it is 100% accurate. It is really good. If it is a clear margin, it is marking it perfectly every time, and it's saving the laboratory some time. It doesn't really do much for the dentist when it's a good margin, because the lab technician, you're going to get the same result. A clear margin, the lab tech and the software is going to mark it the same, very easy. The medium ones, it's actually providing a lot of value for labs there and some dentists, because it can, depending upon when you get into the medium range, the experience of a lab technician is going to matter a lot. And not everybody's going to be able to market as good as the software. And the software was cool because you can think of it as all of the best minds. You keep feeding it all of the perfect margins, the ones that work out. and you feed it from dentists, the best lab techs that market, the best dentists who mark those margins, and you get the ones that work, not the ones that don't. And so all it starts to understand, oh, this works. And you're getting, and so it basically combines all the minds of those best margin markers, and now it starts to mark the margin itself. And so as we've seen, it's still sort of a linear type of growth, but at this point we're using it for I wouldn't say all of them, but near all the good ones and the medium ones, and we're testing it out now for the not so good margins. The not so good ones, it's tough because nobody really at the end of the day knows what works. Some dentists are going to have a higher acceptance with certain cases that have unclear margins. Certain ones aren't, and so we're not 100% sure on that, but we're essentially almost there.
So you, what do you think correlates most with the clear margin? Is it I'm old school. I pack a 0 cord and then a 1 cord. Some people use, chemicals, astringent, pressure. What do you think is correlating to whether or not you got great margins or not?
Well, just using cord, period. There's a large percentage of dentists, I wouldn't know how much, but there's a lot that don't use cord, that just don't use retraction methods, and that gets into a lot of issues. Cord is great. 2 cords, would be even better, but in a lot of instances you can't use 2 cords. There's not enough space to get the scan, or it's blocking the margin in a lot of instances. But just cord is great, and paste is good too. It really is about how you use it. It's not necessarily about the method.
So a lot of it's quality. So just attitude, quality. I mean, there's just and here's another thing that is a big problem in dental offices: morale. So the dentist, he's got bills to pay, and he's getting pandemic, and his revenue's down. He's in there doing a hygiene exam, and he's saying, you need to redo this crown because it has an opening, and I got to catch there and redo the crown. And the hygienist's like, dude, the crown you just placed on my last patient is 4 times more open than that. And so you're not good. So then you go into offices and they say, well, my buddy, his hygienist is always diagnosing a bunch of dentistry and mine doesn't diagnose anybody. Well, maybe she doesn't want to diagnose it because she thinks you're going to make it worse than it was, and she doesn't trust you. So none of your staff let you work on them as patients. None of your staff bring you their babies. So the number one goal of a species is to reproduce and have offspring, and she's not bringing you their babies. And then you got the Saddam Hussein syndrome going. And so what I did when I took an impression, I think the reason I kept Jan for 30 years is because when I took an impression, she checked it first. And if she thought it was no good, and you just hear it hit the waste bag, and and we'd start mixing again. I mean, she threw it in the trash can. What do you want to debate? What do you want to argue? What do you want to sell her? And it just keeping it here. And the same thing with the hygienist. You had to tell the hygienist, they have to be able to look you in the eye and say, hey, doc, that crown you submitted, I don't know what went wrong. I don't know if the cement set up and didn't let it go down the way, but you're going to have to totally redo that one. But I already told her, don't worry, Aries, it's under warranty. It won't cost you a dime. And you just suck it up, buttercup. And if it becomes a reoccurring problem, then maybe before you cement the crown, you should take a bite wing and check that it's down. And if you got a hygienist that just doesn't like any of your crown bridge, let her come in and check it. But it's all about communication, so it's all about attitude. So, if you're not packing cord, it makes me wonder if your assistant is letting you work on her, your hygienist. It's all come on, man. Let's all get on the same team and save some teeth.
And it's like you said earlier too, that the intraoral scanners are sold as you can walk away. You don't need to check anything. You don't need to check the scan. You don't need to zoom in on it. You don't need to actually look at it. And I would say 70%, 80% of doctors are not checking the scans after. They're not zooming in. They're not checking the margins or anything. When we send them a margin review, like, hey, there's we can't see the margin. Can you help us trace it? Or are you okay if this is not a slam dunk case? This is a 50-50 shot. They're looking at it for the first time. They're looking at that margin, even though they've got an intraoral scan, they're seeing it for the first time when we send it to them. And so, and a lot of time that's because the scanning companies are telling you, like, you don't need to do anything. You scan it, you're good, doc. You can walk away. Their assistant will do the rest. You prep and go.
It's funny because every single lab person I know back in the day when intraoral scanners are coming out, I said, well, do you think, I need to get this and to make you a better dentist? He goes, if you're a good dentist, you don't need it. And if you're a shitty dentist, it's not going to help. So,
So
first you just gotta give a shit. You
yeah,
gotta be serious. And if you're serious, I'm sure you'll do it good either way. And if you're not serious, you'll mess it up either way. So it's not a shortcut like, oh, if I get this, I want it to pack cord.
and it's not it's actually it's going to do you if you're not packing cord. It's actually for certain dentists it's going to be worse. It's not just going to be you're not just going to be in the whole $30,000. You're going to have worse crowns actually if you get an intraoral scanner, because you actually get the one I'd say benefit to a physical impression that intraoral scans don't have is that the physical impression does help you with retraction, and it does soak up some blood. Whereas you don't, what you see is what you get with an intraoral scan, and so you really have to have things really retracted well and very dry, much more than with physical impression. And so if you don't do that, you will get worse crowns.
Yeah. So are you? What if someone says, I just hate packing cord? I think first of all that if you hate packing cord, everybody that's ever told me that their cord packer is like the smoothest thing. It's like, you could barely move a Rice Krispie over with it. I mean, try getting a different cord packing instrument. There's serrated ones, there's round ones, there's just different angles, so try a different cord packing instrument. But what do you think about the astringents, the hemostatic agents, all that stuff?
I guess I personally I probably wouldn't be the person to talk to about that. As far as what we've seen with dental practices so I wouldn't know how to implement it. But what we see as far as the results crown wise is that they're basically the same as cord. Cord seems to be a little bit better, but it's not again, it's more about the specific practitioner and how you use it.
And the other thing is you need a braided cord, not a knitted cord, because the braided cords have a tight, consistent weave, and they're just easy to pack. And the knitted cords, the knitting comes undone and they unravel. And why? Because you save 5 cents on gas. So your supplies, are what? 4 to 6%, your lab bills, 8 to 10%. It's your labor that's 25%, and all of those added up just equal what the PPO fee. You charge $1,000 for a crown, but you signed up for a PPO fee, and Delta's paying you, 95% of dentists take a Delta. When in '87, they pay me $1,000 for a crown. 32 years later, it's $650. Well, if your fees are, I think the number one overhead in America is a 42% overhead from your fee schedule and your adjusted production. So you got a 42% reduction on your fee. You got 25% labor, and that creeps up all the time as you get long-term staff and give them a raise every time the Earth goes around the sun. You give everybody another $1 because your raise is based on Mars. Aries might like that, but it's not good for overhead. So when it comes down to lab, by the time we get to supplies, I mean, what's your next best idea? Putting a lockbox over the thermostat when you got some 300-pound assistant that's going through menopause, and then you got an anorexic up front, and really that's your issue? Maybe saving 10 cents on knitted cord that unravels with some cord packing instrument that's just crazy, made by someone who's never packed cord, and get you some nice braided cord that's going to stay together, and a cord packing instrument that, I mean, there are cord packing instruments where the first time you use it, you will say that's cooler than my last car I bought.
It really is worth it, at least from our perspective. When we see the number of remakes, it's very clear. Very clear. You're going to get way less remakes. It's going to be across all laboratories, no matter who you use.
So what the trends now? You say that you think 40% of the crown and bridge market is coming in now digital scanner, but in your lab it's 60%. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think we definitely have a higher percentage in the market.
Man, and when you first started in this dental lab space, what was it? What year did you start, and how much?
2014. So in 2014 we started operations. It was around 8%. The market was around 8%, something like that. It was I remember back in 2014, we had to go through so many, like, just when we were explaining scanners to dentists, we had to go through so many financials about return on investment and how much impression material costs and what you're going to get out of it. And that conversation never happens anymore. It's basically, oh, I know I need to get it. I know I need to do it. Everybody else is doing it. And I just need to figure out which one to get. That's all. It's no longer do I need to.
And obviously this is a growing market. Private equity is not stupid, and they poured money into you. I mean, I saw this in November 15, 2019. Dental Labs making impressions on investors in
Oh yeah.
Forbes, and they mentioned this guy from Mars, Aries Manos. Is that you? Do you know that guy?
That's
And
me.
and this, well, I'll just read the deal. It says just a paragraph. As private equity investors continue to seek the next healthcare services market to consolidate, dental laboratories may be in line for the crown. The highly fragmented space has not yet undergone major consolidation, unlike its dental group counterparts. However, aging owners, a shortage of talent, aging owners, that's basically anyone over 58. That doesn't include anyone 57 and under. A shortage of talent, that's because America's best idea was in all their dental schools to close down the Crown and Bridge department and start up a hygiene department. And then you go to Germany, and they did the opposite. They took their certified dental lab technicians and increased the curriculum all the way to a doctorate of dental lab technology. Then everybody was saying, well, everybody's moving their labs to China. This is back in the 90s and
Yeah.
stuff, because they're just getting cheap people that work for a dime an hour. Really, that's not what I saw there. What I saw there in Hong Kong's only dental student, they had twice as many people studying to be a lab technician as a dentist. And then when I talked to Godfrey and who owns Modern Dental, he said that he says it's really weird. He goes, the dentistry in Germany is so much better because a lab technicians became doctors next to the dentist, and Germany, the dental lab bills the patient for the lab bill, not the crown. The doctor's not the middleman. They bill direct. Any country where Crown and Bridge is serious, the Crown and Bridge company bills directly to the patient, and then the patient learns, that there's different labs. Like, I may go to you as a dentist, but I don't like the lab you use. I like this lab, and then in Germany it's different. Well, if I come to you, can you use Wolfgang over here at this? And they're like, absolutely. I know the guy. We went to school together. So America just completely flushed Crown and Bridge down. And then China just massively took off with Crown and Bridge laboratories. But their highly educated, low-cost labor force is still not a match for the digital. I mean, Jim Glidewell said that it's cheaper for him to make them than send them to China.
It is, and that's one of the things that I guess saved us, because it really was a huge globalization, everything being pushed to China. But because it's not that much more expensive to get the U.S. made crown, but it's a lot faster. You're getting them in 4 days as compared to 3 weeks or something like that. And so just the turnaround time, and then you can also the communication issues are also really a lot easier. And we see one of the main reasons isn't actually even turnaround time, even though it's 200% longer if you're going to send it overseas. It's more communication issues that we see people switching from overseas labs.
Yeah, and another factor that's putting a lot of downward pressures on overseas labs is now, China's got 1,300,000,000 people. They'd like some Crown and Bridge too. And, and it doesn't go over well. When I was at Modern Dental, I think they had 4,000 employees. And when I asked Godfrey, I said, what's your biggest complaint? And they go, they got family people that went to the dentist waiting on our crowns, but we're filling orders for other countries. And that's a sign of a true success. If you were an export-led country, you probably got a really strong authoritarian government, and they're keeping the people down, and they're exporting their way to growth. But the sign of a great economy is that at least 85% of the stuff you make, your own people want it. and buy
Yeah.
it and use it and work there. But I want to finish that article. Just one more paragraph says, the highly fragmented space has not yet undergone major consolidation, unlike its dental group counterparts. However, aging owners, a shortage of talent, increasing digitalization, and a tightening of the purse strings by dentists are driving more labs to consider M&A and several industry sources. Dental labs manufacture customized crown and bridges and dentures. At least 25% of the market consists of 1- and 2-man labs, many of which are feeling the squeeze of equipment expenses, leaving the sector ripe for private equity firms to pursue roll-ups. And as said, yours truly, congratulations on Megan Forbes, said Ayers Mano, founder and CEO of Virginia-based K2 Dental Arts. So when I got out of school in 87, there were 15,000 crown and bridge labs, and now there's half that many.
Yeah, and there's about to be another third. Like this is they're probably the third. There's 1/3 that's going away right now as we speak, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not unfortunately because I'm from Kansas, and you go back to 1880. Almost 80% of all Americans worked on a farm, and now it's down to 1%. So when 80% of your people are working on a farm, no one can go into town and become a hygienist, a dentist, or discover a digital scanner. So creative destructionism, I think, was just an amazing piece of work, and so by doing everything better, faster, easier, higher quality, smaller, it should take less and less people to do the same thing. And if it's taking more and more people to do the same thing over and over, you're on your way to serfdom and poverty. And the greatest world in the world would be if just one guy had to go to work and we all got everything we needed. And that's probably going to be several thousand years off. So then what did you do with this private equity? You sold?
We never got. We were just interviewed. We never actually got private equity. People reached out for private equity, but we were able to finance things sort of ourselves, basically with cash flow and then debt, basically a lot of debt, but we didn't take any outside money.
And how is that working out for you now?
So K2 Dental Arts now operates under Paramount Dental Studio, the larger lab in California.
So when you say it operates as, did they buy you?
Or yeah,
did you partner or?
Yeah, it's a partner. It's basically like a partnership. And so there's no dentists would only know us now as Paramount Dental Studio, as the branding. And in Huntington Beach, California, everything's made now 100% in California. And then the K2 portion is simply the scanner support. A lot of people call us for issues with the scanners, troubleshooting those, or customer service.
So they're in Huntington Beach with Arnold Schwarzenegger on Muscle Beach, and you're clear on the other side of the country in Virginia. So the relationship was really you're the intraoral scanner expert.
Yeah, at this we're intraoral scanner expert. We're essentially the customer service, so the troubleshooting. So we'll help with your case. We help with cases now, and we help with intraoral scanners, but we don't do any production anymore. The production is moved to and that wasn't actually that was kind of in the works when we started. Paramount Dental Studio originally started by Sam Kim, Philip Kim, my business partner, and I. We both started K2 Dental Arts together. We met at business school at UVA. So
who was the three guys? It was you, Philip, and who was the third?
And Dwight.
Dwight
helped.
What's Dwight's last name?
Emerine.
How do you spell that?
Emerine. Dwight works at Amazon. He just sort of helped it get going, but Philip and I were the ones who run it. So Philip went out to California and it makes it, and then I am in Virginia now, and we essentially do all the support.
Nice. And when you say somebody is having a problem with a scanner, I mean, let's make sure we're talking about the same thing first. Is it still that probably if you got 100 crowns, 94% of them are single unit?
I don't think 94, but yeah, maybe 80, maybe 70, something like that. If you're talking about number of cases,
Yeah. If you get a case, what percent of them are just one crown, a single unit?
Let's say six, yeah, maybe case wise, probably in the high 70s, something
Yeah,
like
high
that.
70s. And
Yeah,
there's an Israeli firm. When I was lecturing in Israel over Christmas, an Israeli firm that sells a sorting software algorithms for dental insurance companies,
yeah,
and they play on that. So everybody say it's 80-20.
yeah,
But I found a guy like you, and 100% of your crowns are done two at a time. So that draws attention. So then they go in there, and what you're doing is you're doing one crown, billing for two. The insurance pays
oh,
half of two, and
yeah,
then my buddy in this town had to go sit in jail for 5 years for doing that stupid mistake. And you know why it happened?
yeah,
Because young and dumb, the patient suggested it to him, and he froze, and he said okay, and then it worked, and then he kept doing it. And so when patients ask you when you're young, because I'm worried most about the kids that just graduated, 2020. I'm not worried about a bunch of 60-year-old rich dentists that are getting ready to retire. And when a patient asks you something, and the way the human mind works is like when you're walking down a trail and a tiger jumps out, it's not slow motion. It's not like, I think that's a carnivore. I don't
yeah,
think eats a plant-based diet. I think he might be one. No, your brain rips through everything at the speed of light, and you instantly go into fight or flight and skedaddle up a chair. It's just like in college. You read the question, you said, "Oh, that's B," and then you slow down and start thinking. You turn your pencil around, erase it, and change it to C. And then when you get the grade, you find out, "Oh, I had it right the first time." Well, that's how you're programmed to think. It's just instant. And my gosh, so when a patient asks you something, you got to be aware of your intuition, especially as a patient, because when you start feeling stressed and you're like, why am I stressed, or why am I breathing harder, or whatever, it's because the person laying next to you is stressed. So that's when you gotta comfort that person to comfort yourself. And when they ask you something, and immediately your intuition says, well, that ain't right, the best one-liners say, well, obviously you're not going to ask me to do that and risk me losing my license. I mean, I went to college for 8 years. You obviously don't want me to risk losing my license for $500, and then just laugh. And then they feel like an idiot, and you're done with it. But don't let them drag you down a corner like that. It's always the young kids. Their number one problem is getting whipped around by 50, 60, 70-year-old manipulative people. And people skills is very important. And just because you became a doctor in dental surgery doesn't mean you're any wiser about people. So just don't risk your dental license, dude. You got way too much. Don't risk your dental license. And the other Ophir on his intraoral scanner just put another girl in. She went to prison 10 years. She was resubmitting the same X-ray for molar endos that she wasn't doing, and his software picked it up for the insurance company, and they said,
yeah,
funny that she's done, it was something like 81 molar root canals with the same X-ray, and that woman was successful, and she's going to go sit in a cage for a decade.
yeah.
It's like, don't do that, man. It's too high risk.
Yeah, the software really is. It's crazy how effective it is, and that's the program we're not a part of. But what we hear is that it really is going to revolutionize things. It's going to change, the way the insurance companies, the patients, and the dentists all interact with each other. Basically, keeps everybody honest on that. And so, at some point, you could see that insurance companies are going to want to see that scan. They're going to want to see the software. What does the software say on it before they, reimburse or something like that?
Yeah. So, my gosh, we talked about the dental labs, and then O2 went and invested in Frontier Dental Laboratories. I mean, this is just a fast-moving, must be exciting times for you.
Frontier had a private equity. Maybe that's how it was connected. Frontier had private equity, and they're part of that article. I don't know if Frontier was listed in that article, but they were invested by a private equity firm. It's just starting now. The laboratory industry is lagging the dental world. The dental world had all this huge private equity in it. I'm hearing now that there's a bubble, that everybody thinks there's a huge bubble in dental private equity, that it's going to burst at some point.
Well, what are you hearing?
So there was as a PE conference, and the quote was, the PE guys is like, I feel like I'm in the 8th inning of dental consolidation. And we've got maybe one inning left before it kind of goes up. But at the same time, everybody wants in on that 9th inning because, again, when you're looking at this inverted curve, the hockey, that's where you make all the money. It goes from straight up. It goes tons of value there. And so everybody kind of knows they're at the end, but that they want to, no one knows who's going to be stuck with like hot potato type thing. That's the general idea. But I don't know the specifics.
Well, okay. So when was the beginning of the end?
When was inning what, 7?
Well, I think it was on November 2016 when East West Bank left the dental DSO market.
Oh, okay.
And they said the problem with the DSO, it's all branding. It was kind of like Obama with Obamacare. Every state called it something different. And they didn't know here in Arizona that Access was Obamacare. And everybody knew that Grandma got Medicare. And if he would have done everything he was doing with Medicare and just called it Medicare, it would have been perceived so differently. But when he called it Obamacare, you still aren't going to meet one person in one state that ever thought they were on Obamacare. Like in Arizona, they say, oh, I hate Obamacare. Why? Because Fox News told me. And you say, well, I thought you like Access. Oh, I love Access. That's Medicaid. So, and then people around the world don't get it either because most countries have one national system. So the United States has one national Medicare, and then for the over 65, then 50 states have Medicaid for the poor and what have you. And so when so same thing with DSOs. When you say DSO, people always think Bob Fontana of Aspen, Rick Workman of Heartland, Stephen Thorne. Those guys aren't. All those guys combined are just a couple of percent of the market. Yeah. Most DSOs are 3 to 5 practices. Yeah. And the East West Bank, clear back in 2016, November 30, 2016, which is really a month away from 2017, said, no, we're seeing losses. We're just seeing great losses. And then me on LinkedIn, by having some, I don't know what it is, like 40,000 followers, I'm always getting Wall Street guys sending me stuff and saying, is this normal? And it's like I don't want to go through another one. Just look on the publicly traded markets. Are any of them publicly traded? Snapchat is publicly traded, and all that was to send a nudie picture that disappears after you look at it. But no DSOs can go public because they went through this with the Orthodontic Centers of America and on the New York Stock Exchange. It imploded. There were a dozen on NASDAQ. It imploded. And these Wall Street people want you to grow earnings. And what the DSOs does say, well, the way we grow earnings is we keep coming back for another $1 million and we buy another $1 million dental office. Then we come back, want another $1 million and buy another. And see, we've grown our revenue to $1 billion. And every accountant's like, yeah, but did you look at your debt column? You have $1 billion in debt. Yeah. So your debt should be going down and you should be growing in earnings. And East West Bank said, I'm out of here. And that was November 30, 2016. So let's call that 2017, and now it's 2020. So 3 years ago, the writing was all over the walls. And you're right. There's 2 rules about bubbles. They get bigger than anyone ever imagined, and they always pop. They can't go public. They grow their debt sheets. They grow their balance sheets of debt grows faster than their profit sheets on their P&L and their statement of income. So
the growth, they're dependent upon growth.
And that's channel conflict for me because every time I make this rant on my podcast, I'm going to get several phone calls with these long drawn out deals. And I love them. We're friends, but friends can disagree. I just disagree with the richest dentist in the world. and for all I know, Rick's right and I'm wrong. So.
Well, I heard that, I don't know, again, I don't know if it's right, but a lot of people are saying that the big ones are going to be okay. It's the ones that are going to be in trouble are the smaller DSOs that are trying to get to that large, the 20 to 80, like those DSOs are the ones that are going to be
20 to 80 location?
Yeah, locations. Those mid-tier DSOs, those smaller to I guess those mid-tier, you could call them DSOs. And those would be the ones that are going to have to spin off assets the fastest, meaning spin off locations the fastest. And that's going to be where the opportunity is for your three dental, that single owner that's got three dental practice to pick up a fourth one at a good rate.
And I'll give you some more rumor material to add to this. I think it was December. It was before the pandemic. I didn't even know what was around the corner, and I was asked to speak out in Scottsdale. It was like 100 practice brokers, and that's what they were doing. They were reading all on the wall that they had, and what they were doing is they were going to the DSOs and mapping out all the dentists that had worked for them for 3 or 4 years, and then they knew the balance sheets of the owner, and then as soon as there was a liquidity crisis, they were ready to package that up outside. Yeah. So they were in December. They were all preparing for this, and then the pandemic hit. And so on Dental Town, on the classified ads, for 20 years, we always had about 1,000 dentists listing their practice for sale and about 5,000 jobs available. Now we see 2,000 dentists trying to sell their practice and only 1,000 jobs available. So now the transition brokers are really busy, because if you're 60 years old and you never got divorced, you really want to go get ready to PPE and ultraviolet. You want to do all that, or you're just done. And if you never got divorced, you can retire at 60. But you get divorced one time, you're going to retire at 70. And you get divorced twice, you'll die at the chair. So, there's just huge incentives to keep the first one. And so where is it now?
You talking about the state of the dental industry?
Yeah.
Or the dental,
well, I want to switch gears completely, because I know my dentists. They don't care about macroeconomics. They don't care about they don't want to hear anything about East West Bank. They're dentists. They want to hear about smile design. I mean, a lot of them, it's just part of their whole digital framework. But what's driving it is aesthetics, Invisalign, veneers.
That's one of the biggest trends we see.
Can I be a smile design digital dentist using Improgram and quadrant trays?
You can. Yes, you can. So if you you can, whether it's a scan or so, we need two things. It's really basics. A lot of people make it too complicated, but all you need is two things. You need two face photos, two face photos, and an impression. Physical impression, digital impression, doesn't matter. The physical impression is going to be poured up and digitized, scanned anyway.
Okay, you said you need two things: two face photos, and what was the other?
And an impression. So basically face photos and an impression. Two things, that's it. You send both of those to the lab, and they have the software on their side to essentially overlay the impression and over the face photos. And so they can then incorporate those two. So it's basically like you can do like a face bow almost on, kind of like doing a face bow in every single case. And, and the face bow is actually going to be correct. You can, without the face photo, we have like a lot of, before and afters, or like if it were designed without the face photo, it would look like this. If it were designed with the face photo, it would look like this. But we can basically fix cants. So we can take into account the facial midline, the dental midline, make sure those are, there's not a cant, take the pupils into consideration, lip lines, a lot of things that if you just had a scan and you had no idea what their face looked like, you would design something differently and it wouldn't look as good. It would just look a little bit off. It wouldn't be as harmonious. And so really it's like you're essentially getting a wax up. You'll get a link and you just click the link. And this is from our lab. This is from any lab. You click the link and it'll take you to basically this 3D design where you can rotate it, you can zoom in, you can share the link with the patient, you can get them involved in the process. You can overlay their photo on top of their 3D design teeth, and so you can really take the huge thing is for case acceptance, to get them involved in that process, and then again it's good for no surprises. So a lot of times you're just not going to have, most of the time you're not going to have ideal cases or ideal room for preps or designs and things like that, and so you'll send it, there'll be some sort of consideration that you'll have to talk to the patient about. And you say, we're going to do it like this. I know you wanted this, but we might have, this is what it's going to look like essentially. And so everybody, if they didn't have that, it would be a surprise, and no one wants surprises at the time of seating. Now, since you can see what it's going to look like beforehand, there are no surprises, and it just gives predictability and consistency. So that's Smile Design. You can be doing that on Monday. That's like a Monday morning dentistry type thing, where if you got a scan or an impression, you just take some face photos, and there's we've got links at like how far away and at what angle to take those photos, but it really just starts with a regular smile and a retracted smile, and you can go from there. If you want to do the whole shebang, the whole DSD, Christian Coachman, they've got that course. It does cost thousands of dollars, and you want to add 6 different photos from different angles, but
I was telling you that ever since I bought a digital camera, I can only think of its positive points. There aren't any negatives.
Yeah.
Get it? Joke?
Oh,
I can only think of positive. There's no negatives.
Fast for me.
And you're supposed to say, and a friend of mine, dentist friend of mine, bought a digital camera, but he lost focus.
I got that one.
Yeah. All right. I'll shut her up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kyle just threw up. So smile design, you're saying you need 2 face photos and impressions. So if they're digitally taking 2 face photos and an impression and putting all together, gosh darn, is that AI or is that just old school programming?
I guess the programs aren't that fancy. A lot of people are doing it now. They really are. It really is just the program. I mean, you need a software program, but it's and that's sort of the cool thing about it is that you can actually, it's something you can do right now, and it really does make a difference. And it's just something, and the reason people aren't doing it is just because they haven't been doing it. They're just not used to it, or they don't know it's possible.
Go back. That was pretty far out what you said, but go back and re-explain how 2 face photos are they the same angle? I mean,
correct. It's sort of like it really is just like I'm looking at you or I'm, it's a face photo where it's just a regular smile. And then you'll have like a retracted smile. You have like these retractors and you can see everything type thing, And if you just have those 2, you take those 2 photos and then to scan, you will be able to overlay that face photo and, you can remove it, you can zoom in. It looks, it's exactly what it says. It's like a 2D photo over the 3D designed image.
Wow.
And so you can see that.
Okay, so what % of the cosmetic cases send in 2 photos with their impression so that you can do this?
What % of the cosmetic? So of the cosmetic cases, and not always cosmetic, I would probably say 5% or less right now are doing it that way, or they're asking for it. It's very low, but it used to be almost 0 that wanted it. And now we're initiating it on the lab side. We're saying, we're just sending it out. We're saying, hey, we just did this for you. Take a look at it. And they're like, oh, wow, this is interesting. Can I send that again? I'd like that one this time. Or here's the design review. Please review this design, especially for sensitive anterior stuff. We're sending design reviews almost on all of them, just because they're sensitive cases. You want to know exactly what it's going to look like.
So that if you say digital smile design, that's Kevin Coachman's deal. That's what?
Yeah, that's a brand. I think they branded that. They've trademarked that. Or the digital smile design. That is Christian Coachman. That is there's more to it, but essentially that's what they're doing. They're taking scans and face photos, and then creating mock-ups of it. So what you do with that, so once you approve that design, you can see a lot of it. I think the traditional DSD method is on a patient that hasn't been prepped. They're not sure if they want to move forward with treatment, or they're sure they want to move forward with treatment. No, let's say they're not sure. They're not sure, but they've got a lot of crowding. It's really expensive case. They don't know if they want to go forward with it. So you say, you know what, let's do this let's do this smile design thing. We'll take all these 6 different photos. We'll take a scan. We'll take an impression. We send it to the lab. They will design it. We design the case ideally over the patient's existing teeth, and then print a model. So there's a 3D printed model of the design teeth, of the teeth, the idealized teeth, and then you take with a putty matrix. So essentially an impression of those design teeth that then you can then fill with acrylic, put it in the patient's mouth, and create a try-in over their existing teeth. That try-in then is going to be more accurate. It's going to be basically a better try-in than if you did just a regular wax up. The main thing about digital smile design is you're taking the patient's facial features into consideration. So you just get a better product. That is the difference. They have a lot of methods and tools to get you there, but it has the facial features, whereas normal wax ups do not. And so,
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
And do you, and so the DSD, digital smile design, you were talking about how much that cost, and do you think it's good value? You know, she's coming out of school. She's 25. She's $400,000 in student loans. She wants to be a cosmetic dentist when she grows up. What are your thoughts on the DSD, digital smile design by Christian Coachman?
I think it's too expensive, in our opinion. So this is probably going to be the place where the only.
Now remember, he's a Virginia hillbilly. Okay,
yeah,
I mean, he's
yeah.
But what do the rich people in Huffington Beach say? Do they agree?
Yeah, maybe. But here's the channel conflict on my side, probably, is because we do the design. So did DSD they make their money on the lectures and the seminars and things like that, and then also they have their design service. So you'll send them for a design, but they don't mill. They actually don't create the restoration. You take that design that they've created for you, and then you send it to a laboratory and you say, don't design it, just mill what I'm giving you right now. Their designs are very expensive. You're talking $400, $500, extremely expensive designs, and they're great designs. They're actually very, very aesthetic designs. The issue that you can sometimes run into, it's not all the time, but you will eventually run into it when you're getting these beautiful designs, is that they're not actually practical. They can't be made into reality because these designers are designing in a vacuum. They're designing in this design software. They're not taking the constraints of a mill into consideration. Mills can only mill at certain angles. They can only go to certain depths, certain tolerances. So we've had issues where doctors have sent us designs from DSD, and it keeps breaking. Like the mill, it actually chips in the mill every single time on these really nice cases, because the DSD people, since they don't mill, they're not next to it. They don't have a milling department. They have no idea. So they're just making something very beautiful, and they're charging a lot of money for it. On our side, we will give you something that actually is going to work every single time, and it looks really good too. And it's like a quarter or something, or half the price.
I just want to say something really nice about Coachman, though. I got to say it. He was on the show. He was on 186. But, you know, in my entire life, August 4th is my 30-year anniversary of lecturing. So I've been on tour since August 4th, 1990. Still to this day, that you said that Christian Coachman, the big deal was lectures, events, or whatever. To this day, the biggest event I ever lectured at was his in São Paulo, Brazil. 4,000 people at the Aesthetica 2000 conference.
Yeah, it's wild.
I mean, holy moly, it was like a rock concert.
Yeah.
So an amazing man, but you're saying it's too expensive.
Yeah, just too expensive. Not that there's anything wrong with the product, it's just way too expensive. And everything they do is just really expensive.
Yeah.
Great.
So that's what I call price elasticity. So price elasticity is that price has a very elastic effect on demand. You're going to sell a hell of a lot more Ford Escorts than you are Lamborghinis. So what I don't understand about dentists, I'll say, well, what is your favorite procedure? Oh, I love crown and bridge. Okay, well, let's talk about lowering your crown fee 10%. Are you crazy? I want to raise it 10%. Oh, so you want to do less crowns? Because we know if crowns are if you do 10 crowns at 1,000, you'll do 100 crowns at 100. So dentists, every time the earth goes around the sun, they think raising their fee, they'll do more. And how you'll do more is you get better, faster, easier, higher quality. And the other thing is, so many dentists think they're high quality because they schedule 2 hours to do a crown. No, you're not. That's not quality. That's just, you're dumb and lazy. Hey, so we just had an outage because you're in a thunderstorm in Virginia?
Exactly, yeah. We got the outage, and now I'm in the dark.
Now you're in the dark? Okay, now you know my world. I've been in the dark for 40 years, 40 nights. My God, I can't believe we went over an hour. But we were talking about Smile Divine design. I want to switch gears to real quick. We're over an hour and 15. I want to wrap this up. But a lot of times when a dentist had a big purchase to make, like say he really needed a CBCT, but it's like
Yeah.
$130,000 something. But he's friends. He's an extrovert. He presses the flesh. He goes to lunch with his periodontist and his oral surgeon, and they have one. And he just said, "Hey, when I need this, can I send my patient over to you?" Do you see any specialists, oral surgeons, periodontists, scanning for general dentists?
Yeah, we see the oral surgeons are really starting to pick it up, and we're working with oral surgeons in a big way. We're seeing them send us. So essentially, the oral surgeons are now adopting intraoral scanners, and the workflow is that when a patient will go to, at the point of referral, that the patient goes to the oral surgeon. They have to come back for a torque test to make sure everything's healed properly. During that torque test, they have to be at the oral surgeon's office anyway. The oral surgeon has a scanner, so why not just take the scan while the patient's there for the general dentist as an added service and send it to the laboratory. Now the general dentist doesn't have to take an impression, and the patient doesn't have to take off work, come back in, doesn't have to wait 2 extra weeks for their impression. They can come in 2 weeks later for the final seating of the abutment and crown. And one of the natural questions is, what's in it for the oral surgeon? Well, oral surgeons are essentially looking to be more competitive in the marketplace. The general dentists are placing more and more implants themselves. Implants are being commoditized. And so when something becomes commoditized, you're looking to move to the next level as a service to stay competitive in the marketplace. And so they're doing a lot of this just to be essentially more competitive. And the stats from the implant companies, I know Zimmer Biomet did a study on this. The oral surgeons are saying that, or it benefits the oral surgeons in that they're going to get more referrals. There's about 20% more referrals that they get from their words, it's their C&D referrals. So essentially, not the dentist that sends 100% of the patients to that oral surgeon, because whether they get a scanner or they don't get a scanner, that dentist is still sending 100% of their patients to the oral surgeon. It's the dentists that maybe not 100% comfortable with diagnosing implant cases, that rather just keep it a single unit crown or a bridge as opposed to diagnosing it as implant. Those cases now, because you don't have to take the impression for it, the oral surgeon is going to take the impression for it. All they do all day long is take one type of impression, an implant level impression, that they're going to get really good at taking that impression. And it's a scanner too, so you're getting additional accuracy. And so now, as a general dentist, you're getting a quality product that just drops in. You're not going to have all of these issues that if you're not familiar with implants, you're not familiar with taking the impression for implants, with all the things that could go wrong. The oral surgeon and the scanner are essentially eliminating a lot of that, a lot of those issues for you, because they're specializing in taking that impression now. So it's a cool. Oh, and then from the general dentist perspective, what a lot of people are probably thinking right now is, well, I don't want to, am I going to lose value in the eyes of my patients if I'm not doing the impression? If I'm just seating it and basically making money, are they going to think that I'm not doing anything? There's no reason to go to me. Is my oral surgeon even going to take my patients from me? We've never seen that. There's no oral surgeon, there's no specialist, no periodontist that would ever want to get a reputation like that. And the patients themselves, most of the time, they don't know the difference. They don't know that this is not the way it's been for 50 years, that this is the way that it's just a new method for them. That's great. They take the impression there. And the ones that are saying, hey, what's going on? Why are you taking the impression, oral surgeon? The oral surgeons are, like hawks, and they're very, very clear, and they're very, very, to be like this is the crown and bridge work is the wheelhouse of the general dentist. That's not mine. I just do the implant. We're just taking this information for them. And then once that impression is taken and sent to us from the oral surgeon, we essentially do a whole mock-up, and we'll send you a design review. Just like we were talking about Smile Design, you get a link and you can see it in 3D. Same thing happens with with an implant case. Now you get a link saying, we got the scan from the oral surgeon. What do you think about this screw retained crown? Does it look okay to you? Do you want to make any adjustments, contours, all right, etc.? And so the general dentist can now bring it up, can share it with the patient, say, look, this is what we went with zirconia, we went with titanium. This is why we're doing this is what it's going to look like. And so the general dentist is always in the loop. You're still approving the case. You're just not going through all the work to get it, which is kind of cool.
That is an amazing idea. I was sitting there thinking, my homies, they, a podcast is fun when you're commuting, you're multitasking, you're on the treadmill, you're driving, but they love their AGD credit. We put up 400 1-hour courses on Dental Town. They've been viewed 1 million times. This is so complex. I wish you'd create an online CE course on Dental Town explaining all this. Would you ever be game for that?
I would love to. Absolutely.
I would love that. And you're in the middle of a thunderstorm, and so I need to let you go. But my final question is this, and I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. You got to answer this with all your general conflict.
All right.
She wants to know, with this pandemic, just do same day dentistry, the in-house mills, the chairside milling. I mean, like say radiography took off. Digital imaging is taking off. I still think CAD CAM is, kind of flat at 15%, but it's hard, it's hard for them to wrap their mind around it because I've been getting I've been saying no for 30 years and they still ask me. I have people say, I listen to every one of your shows, and then they ask me that question. It's like, dude, you didn't listen to any shows. I've asked this 100 times, but final question. She's 25. She's going to start her own practice. She's $400,000 in debt. Should she drop 135 grand and get a CEREC Sirona machine?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Where's
chairside milling?
Chairside milling. In general, it's sort of like a catch-22. That if you have the volume, you don't have the time. If you have the time to do it, you don't have the volume. And they're just way too expensive for what you get.
That's well put. I've never heard that before. That is well put. Chairside milling, if you have the time, you don't have the patient volume. You don't have any patience.
Yeah.
And if you have a lot of patience, you don't have time. So how did you say chairside milling? If you have the time.
You don't have the volume. If you have the volume, you don't have the time.
And
so so it doesn't necessarily, when you ask people, why am I getting a CAD CAM? It's never, we could just get the quality out of the way. It's never, I'm going to get better quality crowns. It's never the case. In most instances, you probably won't. It'll probably be an assistant that's designing them. You're not going to design them as the dentist. And that person is doing maybe 30 crowns a month versus 30 to 40 crowns a day at the lab. If you're talking about the turnaround or the time-wise, you've now added chair time to the mix. Whereas before, you'd have a same-day crown does happen the same day, but if you're not charging the patient extra, if you're not charging them you are basically taking up more chair time when you get that, because the milling portion, they're still at the office in a lot of these instances. And if you tell them to leave and come back later in the day, a lot of patients just aren't going to, have 2 appointments, take a whole day off to be back in your practice. So you're taking up more. So the more to grow when you're first, business school, when they say when you're starting out, you want to think about top line, get more patients in the door, more customers. You're growing your patient base. You're not trying to, if you have 2 patients, you're not trying to maximize efficiency and lower your costs. Get 200 patients and then work on maximizing your costs later on. So in the beginning at CAD CAM, what you're interested in buying it for is maybe I can save a lot of money if I do it myself over the long term. Straight from the Patterson rep's mouth, who used to do like a ton, be one of the top salesmen of CEREC. He then left Patterson, went to a different company, and saying the heyday of CEREC, the heyday of CAD CAM was 2006, and that was back when crowns were $200, $250 from the local lab. That is no longer the case. You're just those prices have gone away, maybe for just the really top technicians that are doing those anterior cases. For the most part, And that's what made the $130,000, even the $100,000 or the $80,000, and made those financially, it made sense. But when you're looking at crowns that are below the 99 and below, the amount of savings that it'll take you 7, 8 years to break even on some of these systems. And the other thing that dentists never take into consideration is their time. They always just say, these are my hard costs. Oh, I'm going to get the crown for $40, hard costs all in. That is not about how much time you're putting into your chair time, and not putting into yourself or your assistants. You're not taking any of that, and you're not taking any redos and things like that into consideration.
Yeah. One last final question. I can't let you go. America's been at war every year except for 20 years. And we've been in Afghanistan for 19 years. You're involved with Wounded Warriors. Tell us finish off with a rant on Wounded Warriors.
So Philip is the connection. Philip, business partner who took over in manufacturing. Philip went to West Point, was in the Army. He was in the Army Special Forces. He was injured in combat. That's where the Wounded Warrior sort of original motivation comes from, that he went through it himself. Then he ran one of the Army's largest dental clinics, and now is running Paramount. And so he's the manufacturing side of the whole operation. And just because of that, over the years, Paramount is now, and the whole, Paramount K2, it's now about 40% veterans that comprise it, which is a massive amount. The lab itself is probably altogether now 180, 200 people. 40% veterans is higher percent veterans than maybe the most in the industry. Mostly Marines, but oddly enough, mostly Marines. Don't know why it's like that. I think there's a basic.
What do you mean why you don't like that? I mean, what are they going to do? Join the Army, which stands for ain't ready for Marine Corps yet. Wow, that's amazing.
But yeah, it's just a big focus. It's just, that's something
tell Philip if he ran that dental laboratory, he got wounded in war, it would just be the biggest honor to podcast interview him. You tell him if he ever wants to come talk about his dental journey and Wounded Warriors and all that. What an American story. We should have done that one for the 4th of July. What were we thinking?
I'll talk. I'm sure he'd love to do it.
Yeah, well, let's do it. But yeah, and in fact, that's my final rant on this whole pandemic. I mean, when I was a little kid, I was born in '62. So when me and my neighbors, Jim Ware and Steve Ware, were playing Army, we thought, that's what all boys do. Everybody, they finished high school, they got their draft number, they left, and on the 8-block walk to Blessed Sacrament School, almost every block had a crucifix out there of someone that passed away. You just thought that was your fate. And it was scary, and I'll tell you what, I'll take a pandemic any day. I'm under house arrest, eating chocolate and watching Netflix. I'll take that any day than getting shot at in a jungle or Vietnam War. And then the other thing is a personal thing. When your life is being ruined by another human, that has got to bring the worst out on you. I don't have any personal feelings against the coronavirus. You know what I mean? Okay, I'm getting my ass kicked by a coronavirus, but I'll take that 100,000 to 1 over another human we only got one species. I mean, we're not even Homo sapiens. We killed all the other Homo Neanderthal, Homo habilis. We're the only Homo left, so we're just sapiens now. And I'd rather get killed by a virus or a fungi or a prokaryote than another, one of my homies from my own species, Homo sapien, So, but yeah, tell Philip that tip my hat. What a journey. If he ever wants to come on the show, it'd be an honor for him to come on and talk about his journey, getting wounded, and the Wounded Warriors.
Absolutely. Will do.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for going overtime. I asked you for an hour of your life, and you gave me an hour and a half. So thank you so much for all you're doing for dentistry. And I I'm Howard at dentaltown.com, but the guy who does the CE is Howard Goldstein, so he's Hogo at dentaltown.com. I'll send you both an email.
Yes, please.
But to get an online CE course, and then the kids listening to you now, they're extra motivated because they get their CE credits, whereas the old people, they just want to learn the information.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Thanks for all you do. Have a rocking hot day.
Thanks. Bye.